How do you do? I'm Eilina Armstrong with SC Media, and welcome to another SC in Focus here at RSA. With me today, I have Don Gray, Director of Product Marketing with NTT Security. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
So, there certainly are many benefits to how the digital realm is advancing business, certainly transforming it, but how and to what extent is it impacting security processes and plans within enterprises?
Yeah, I think when you look at the benefits, right, of digitization and moving to the cloud, obviously the ability for businesses to be able to adopt solutions faster is a huge one, right? Cost savings, not having to build things themselves. When you look at how that affects security, I think one of the things that I look at is Gartner, when they talk about digitization and digital enterprises, right? And they first started focusing in the IT arena, right? And talking to CIOs about what the impact of their organization was. They talked about bimodal IT. It's this concept of you have a ongoing engineered waterfall process for your applications and your general IT infrastructure that's a much more engineered traditional approach. But then you also have a separate process that's more agile and it's more focused on being nimble and quick and adopting. And so when I think about how that has to impact security, I think that from a security standpoint, we need to adopt a similar strategy and we need to think about that more. And so yes, you have an overall security program driven by the controls that you've put in place and you want to have a single view of security and you want to have an orchestrated program, but you need to be able to have that ability to adopt nimbly to new technologies, new solutions for the business.
And so do you see any other challenges as, you know, all of us rely more and more on these technological advances? Do you see other opportunities?
I think that, you know, I've been doing security for a long time, been involved with a managed security service provider for a long time, and we've been talking for a long time about the need to classify data, right? The need to be able to understand where your data is and how it's being used and what the value is to the organization. And so those kind of fundamental security tenets of one of those being knowing what my data is and how it's being used, I think it gives us an opportunity to perhaps revisit those and say that if we haven't done all the things that we would have liked to have done previously around that, or as formally as we'd like to have done, or put the controls in place that we'd like to have, this gives us another opportunity to use that new solution that wants to be put in, that the business wants to put in place, and be able to say, okay, that's going to drive risk in this way, and therefore we need to go back to this part of our program and be able to adapt it and perhaps strengthen it when we weren't able to make a case for that in the past.
And I guess that's sort of the panacea, right? This notion of making sure that organizations, their executives are thinking about security from the jump, and they're embedding security into their systems, while at the same time these organizations or the individuals working for the organizations are relying on all of these great technologies. Can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges there? Yeah,
so you know, I wish there was magic security dust we could sprinkle over things, right, and say it's embedded. But the reality is that to be able to put the security solutions with the digitization effort or the new solution that's being put in place, you have to have the fundamental security program pieces in place to be able to plug into it, right? And so now it's about how do I get the visibility into this new thing, right? I'm adding a new capability to the organization. If I want to engage it from a security standpoint and be able to use it, I need to get visibility into it, and I need to have the control over it, right? So it's really those two areas.
What should organizations be doing as far as best practices are concerned to really bolster their security programs as all these processes become much more digitized, we're moving into the cloud? Right. What should they be doing? What are some of the key things to bear in mind?
Well, I think the first one I'd say is, you know what neighborhood you're moving into, right? When you're building one of these solutions that you're using someone else's application as a provider, you know, understand what risks that's bringing to you based on who they are and what other kinds of organizations are using that. Yeah. I think that there's been some maturity over the last year or two that organizations realize that they're not going to get all the kinds of ability to do audits that they'd really like to do, that they have to rely on the provider for that, right? And so you need to make sure that the provider's going to be able to give you the information you want when you want it, right? If I'm looking at it from a security standpoint, how do I know when an incident's occurred, right? And how am I integrating into that solution to be able to know that? So I think that's, the message is that you still need to do your homework. You still need to know who you're in business with. You still need to know what processes and where the boundary between what that provider is responsible for from a security and compliance standpoint and what you're responsible for, certainly from a security standpoint. I think the other one is identity and access management.
That's huge. That is huge.
Identity and access management has been, arguably not required, right? If you control the estate, you control all the pieces and parts. You can make a solution work that doesn't use that. But as soon as you start moving services into the cloud, I don't think that's an option anymore. You have to have a workable identity and access management solution that can cross those multiple applications, because it's not, once again, it's not under your control. You're dealing with multiple providers. You need a way to centralize that user access and visibility.
Very good. Well, I certainly appreciate you taking the time with us today, Don. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Don
Very good
Gray
talking
with
with
NTT Security. And that does it for this SC in Focus. I'm Eilena Armstrong. Thank you so much for clicking in.